fantasy readers, welcome to the Dear Fantasy Reader podcast, where two best friends, Hannah and Karen, travel through the pages of our favorite romantasy novels. Join us as we take flight into the world of the Empyrean series, diving deep into the chapters, exploring characters, scenes, theories, foreshadowing, and more, taking what we've learned from the second book, Iron Flame, to reread and re-experience the first.
With that content warning and spoiler alert, we will be covering anything and everything Empyrean series to this date and any content Rebecca Yarros has given us. Also, due to the nature of these books, this podcast is rated R in content and in language.
As Rebecca Yarros says, readers who may be sensitive to these elements, please take note and prepare to enter Baz Gaiath War College. Jumping right into our summary report of chapters 32 and 33 from our personal scribe informant, Karen.
We left off with Violet doing something completely reckless and completely Violet. She walks the parapet. Yes, that parapet, barefoot and in a dress uniform at night. And why? Because she's finally ready to stop running from her feelings for Xaden. She finds him sitting out there alone on the anniversary of his father's execution while everyone else is celebrating. Violet doesn't hold back. She lays it all out for him, saying she knows he's scared. And she's scared too, but she is all in. Xaden tries to push her away at first, but she calls him out, asking him to stop pretending he doesn't want her, and he finally cracks. They clear up their jealousy, confirming that neither Imogen nor Dane are love interests for either of them. Thankfully. Sorry. Violet expresses that it is her turn to take care of him, and he takes her up to his room. Violet tells Xaden that she loves him, and the countdown begins. Wink, wink. They are working on number 6 when all of a sudden, Garrick starts banging on their door, declaring an emergency attack. Violet dresses in haste, and Xaden throws his flight jacket on her to keep her warm. They rush out to the courtyard in a panic, only to find out that it's a drill for the war games. Dane's father, Colonel Atos, reads out their hypothetical scenario for the final event of war games. The wards are falling. There has been an unprecedented, multi-level attack along the borders by drifts of Griffin riders, and several deaths have already been reported. Colonel Atos assigns Xaden and his hand-selected group to establish 4th Wing headquarters at Athben, an outpost outside of the wards. Xaden selects Violet, and this does not sit well with Dane. Dane accuses Xaden of intentionally separating Violet from her squad so that he can get revenge on her mother, but Violet stands her ground and chooses to go with Xaden, setting off for Athben.
It's kind of like bittersweet. I want to cheer her on there, but I know what that leads to. Anyways, drum roll, Dragon Riders, as we are officially practicing healthy communication, emotional availability, and that thing Xaden does with his fingers.
Oh my gosh.
I had to. It was right there. Quick note, we have combined our standout moments and foreshadowing moments in this discussion and analysis section for this episode, so we won't have that separate at the end. It's all right here. So let's dive in to the parapet scene.
Woo.
So we start off, and Violet has this moment of realization that unlike the support that she had from her own family when Brennan died, Xaden has had no one to care for him. Yet, he's been caring for himself and the 107 other children from the moment that his father died. And she is determined to get to him, knowing what sort of state of mind that Garrick and Bodhi said he was in, dangerously stepping out onto the parapet.
It is so fitting that we have circled right back to the parapet because this is where they first met.
Yeah. Well, I love the symbolism and callback to how intense Violet's first time on the parapet was, a moment that changed the trajectory of her whole life and the first time that they met. Now under completely different circumstances, changing the trajectory of their relationship. How fitting.
I love that.
Yeah, same. And this whole scene is so great to me because it shows such mutual vulnerability between both of them. Violet doesn't just tell Xaden here that she is all in. She shows him. And it's a huge leap of faith, especially given how guarded he has been. And the way that she is so open and direct with Xaden here, confident in how she is reading all of the signs that we've been screaming at her, right, through all these episodes. It's finally clicking for her that he does care and he does want her. And he, Xaden, finally crumbles, admitting to her, because we know he has loved her and wanted her, but he admitted that he does want this.
Oh my gosh. Oh, yes. And not even just admitting that he wants her, because he could have said that and still been against an official relationship.
Right.
But he's also all in and he wants it to be something real too.
Yeah, like they've had these moments where they've both been vulnerable and both been open, but it's really just like never been at the same time. And this little set of chapters is kind of like their moments of bliss where they really feel like they're finally on the same page.
Feels so Gilmore Girl.
Yeah.
Have you watched Gilmore Girls? I just keep seeing.
I have not. I never get half your references.
I know. I've been rewatching Gilmore Girls and characters that are supposed to be together but never on the same page. And he literally says, I'm all in.
I have allowed myself, the last episodes, we've been like, oh, that's so sad. That's coming up. Part of me, I'm sure I do that a little bit for the second chapter portion of this episode, but a lot of me just like wishes we could revel in Xaden and Violet finally being at this point.
I'm trying.
Yeah, right. Okay, so then we get this really healthy conversation about both of them being jealous, which has been a very common theme for both point of views that we've gotten from them. So Violet over Imogen, who she finds out actually has eyes for Garrick, and Xaden over Dane. And Xaden, makes a comment implying that he's wondered if Dane would be a better fit for Violet than he would.
No, Xaden. No, Xaden. Dane would not have been a better fit for her because he doesn't see her as an equal. He doesn't respect her. He has no faith or trust in her. And like we've said, we've hardly seen a true friendship between the two of them because ever since Violet got to Basgiath, he's had no faith in her. He's also crossed all of her boundaries. I could go on and on.
Yeah, we could. I'm going to divert because we could go on and on. I do really love to see the jealous side of Xaden, though. So I wouldn't hate it if the Halden theory we've mentioned a couple times for Onyx Storm was true. And we got to see more of that. Not in like a love triangle way, because there's no way that Violet is entertaining anyone else, but just enough to really get to see Xaden be jealous. It's attractive on him, actually.
Oh, yeah. I think so, too. And I don't think Dane's earned the jealousy. Like, it's not warranted for Xaden to be jealous over Dane. And so I kind of hope we see that in the upcoming book. And there's, like, room for Rebecca to explore those tensions without, like, actually undermining their relationship.
I was wondering when I read the part where Xaden said he was jealous of Dane, I was like, why, how? He knows that they've been best friends since childhood. So
Yeah.
Dane is always going to know a part of Violet that he never got to. I think that's one part of it. I think also he is so concerned over being a part of this revolution that us readers and Violet don't know about just yet, and is thinking like what it would make her life easiest, smoothest, whatever.
Yeah.
And I could see Dane providing that. He doesn't have the marked one who's going to mess up her reputation. I'm not defending it.
Yeah.
I still think it's bonkers. Because clearly we are always going to say that we think Dane would never match.
I don't think that Dane would have provided her an easy life, though, either, because then she would have been on the wrong side of...
I never think he thought it through enough. Like, I think he just always wondered if that just would be not necessarily what's best for her. Because I don't think Xaden thinks the same way about what would be best for Violet like Dane does. And he also sees the way he treats her. Like, Xaden's, I'm thinking like the irrational side of Xaden could question all of the things that Dane is that he's not.
Yeah.
Which are never going to match up. But I could see where he would feel that way.
Yeah.
And no wonder they have like all this aggression for each other.
Like that one scene in whenever they were at the table with Mira and someone said, you just want to measure here?
Right. And jealousy is not always rational, right?
Right.
But a little jealousy in a book specifically can be fun. And that's my point.
In a book, specifically.
In a book. Now, this is quite a bit of a whiplash topic, but shame on Rebecca. Shame on her for these Liam references, man. Having Xaden say, quote, Liam will be here next year to make sure you're not doing asinine things was hard enough to hear, knowing what's coming. But then Violet saying, you're going to love getting his letters, knowing damn well Rebecca was about to kill him the very next day. That's so cruel. That's so cruel.
It hurts so much more now that we know what's coming. We're trying not to focus too much on it, but we can't. There's no way. It's
foreshadowing, right?
Right.
Like, there's our moments you have to touch on, which just fucking sucks.
Oh my gosh. And we talked briefly about it last episode, but it's almost like Rebecca's giving us these little happy moments with Liam so that it will hurt us that much more and just twist the knife.
And it is because she said she wrote him, like this was his purpose, was to be the twist of the knife. And that just, moving on.
Rude.
Whiplash again. Violet has Xaden take her to his room, and we get this call back from Violet as they're going up the stairs where she references her first day when Dane took her up to his room, and she was scared because the stairs didn't have a railing. We get a funny jealous moment from Xaden over it, but also, again, love the symbolism in how far Violet has come since that day.
Yeah, and we just said it. We just said it was like full circle with the parapet, but I also love that brought back the staircase, and these were two things that terrified her. And again, she's going to another man's room, but now it's the right man's room.
Right. Well, and if you think about like the trajectory when we first read this book, like you're thrown right into the parapet, and then right after you're going up to this, like what we think is a love interest room. And it's just like this book could have went a totally different direction.
Yeah.
And I think that is super symbolic in both of those full circle moments, right? And she's realizing that. Like, she's walking up with the person who the first time she was on the parapet was planning to kill her, right? And then the symbolism of actually what this night means and how it wasn't Xaden that put her in danger, it was Dane.
Wow.
Like that whole flip of that. Yeah, no, that's.
I was just imagining this story if she had made different decisions here. Crazy.
I don't think I'd like the book. Well, I wouldn't like the book if she went with Dane, but then maybe Dane wouldn't have been as terrible of a person. Like,
Yeah.
Rebecca has said that there wouldn't be Fourth Wing without Xaden.
Right.
And she even hinted that there wouldn't be a series without Xaden, so I'm just going to leave that one there. So they get into Xaden's very large and seemingly quite organized room, and I'd like to take a moment to appreciate healthy communication and boundaries. This first happened on the parapet when Violet is asking Xaden to come with her, and he explains that he's in no place to take care of anyone tonight. And then again here, when he tells her he doesn't want to talk about it, thinking that that's what she wants from him, when really she was just trying to take off his shoes and take care of him. This is my favorite kind of miscommunication or misunderstanding, because Violet gets to tell him, now I take care of you. And you can see just how taken aback Xaden is by this, because it's something so foreign, which just makes my heart ache and melt for him.
It is such a vulnerable moment for him because, yeah, he's not used to being taken care of. And
No.
you can just see how meaningful it was for him that Violet was willing to be that person for him.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a great example of how their relationship is becoming more balanced and they're not just equals in power, but also like in their emotions too.
They do establish a really good foundation right here where it's like, it's balanced for a second. and maybe there's hope.
That TikTok sound, did you know you have 30 minutes?
30 minutes? Oh no. Because that just makes me think of Liam.
I mean, here, let's not focus on Liam.
Did you know you have 30 minutes? Oh no.
30,
Okay.
30.
That's awful.
Oh.
Okay. Back in Xaden's room, there's this strange moment that I have to talk about here where Violet is taking off his boots to put them in the armoire, but Xaden blurts out, "You can just leave them there," implying there is something in that closet, I guess, that he doesn't want her to see. And I'm wondering if there were stolen daggers in there. But that seems like such a dumb hiding place.
Yeah.
So I guess it could just be him not wanting her to go through like the trouble of putting his shoes up. Like it just be explained away.
Yeah. I think it would be a dumb hiding place, but
Right.
maybe he has it some kind of like spell or something to where, or charmed or
Warded.
That's what I was going to say.
I guess that would make sense because he was supposed to do a run to the Flyers in Athens, not that following day, but the day after. So maybe he has gotten them. It just seems like that would be silly place to put it, I guess. But honestly, it could just have been a way for Rebecca to foreshadow how many secrets Xaden has hiding in his closet.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's all about to come out. You know?
Yeah.
Not all of it, but
whichever one it is, it's definitely felt a little bit like a red flag. That's weird. Oh my gosh. But he's usually so calm, cool, and collected. But the way he panicked over something simple like this, it just makes me think that there was something significant hidden in there.
So you go back to the daggers.
Yeah, I think that's what it makes me think. And I'm dying to know if that's true or not, but
I don't know that we'll ever really get confirmation outside of if we get a POV from that chapter. I think the safest thing, if it is something, is it was daggers. Yeah. Now, in this little stretch, okay, first of all, Xaden in general has such romantic lines, always, but especially here, saying he doesn't deserve Violet, but he's going to keep her all the same. Swoon.
Oh my gosh.
But Violet then follows it up with, "Good, because I think I'm in love with you. Let's fucking go." It's finally. Now, Xaden's eyes tense and his arms tighten around her. His reaction here, and the whole scene, really, takes on an even deeper meaning knowing that he has been in love with her. And Violet really steps up to the plate in this moment, bravely telling him that she is actually wildly in love with him.
Oh my gosh, my heart cannot take it. It can't. This is one of the most vulnerable moments we have seen from Violet. And she's always been brave, right? She's been brave in battles. And now she is like here and she's risking emotional pain. And I feel like that's just really huge for her.
Yeah.
And then Xaden's response when he pulls her close with an intense and passionate kiss. Oh, it's like he's pouring all of his unspoken feelings that we know into the kiss.
Right. Well, and it is. And I get why he didn't say it back there, right? Like, I think that was like an unspoken thing, right? The progression, though, of Violet's thoughts from the moment that she calls herself his to Garrick and Bodhi to this moment, it's really nice to read, right? And I love to see how emotionally aware she is.
Finally.
And this is the set of chapters that really shifts in.
Oh, yeah.
But I think it was probably quite fast for him.
I think she was in denial herself and finally opened the floodgates. But it took her forever to get to this point.
Yeah. And I think that explains a little bit why, like, he was still cautious.
Yeah.
Because we know he loves her and he takes a long time to say it. But if we think about, like, his hesitancy here, it's understandable. And then, like, shit hits the fan.
Yeah.
Like, no wonder he's, like, guarding it after how she reacts. And I think both of them were in the right.
Yeah.
We'll get there when we get to those chapters. But here I could see for sure why he didn't.
And he could have been holding it back just because he wouldn't want it to seem like he's just saying it because she said it.
Or saying it before she knew more of the things that he hadn't said. I think that's most likely.
I think the fact that he didn't say it, but that he did fall first is so much better because it's the opposite of what we are led to think on the first read.
Right.
That Xaden is the one that has been in denial this whole time, but nope.
Nope, it was Violet. Do you remember the conversation we had when we were speculating on who really fell first before we got Xaden's chapter 27?
Yeah.
I think that you said that you thought Xaden fell harder, but maybe not first or vice versa. And I said, what if he fell first and harder?
Yeah.
I think we got first and harder.
Yeah, I so think we did. Yeah. He fell hard, but he needed to know how she felt for him too before he could really allow himself to open up to it.
Right.
He still has reasonable reservations being a leader of the revolution and all, and he says himself that he needs Violet. He's never needed anyone before, so he's also trying to navigate those feelings. So I get why he takes so long telling her, but his reaction here and using physical intimacy to communicate, it just really says everything he needs to at this point.
Precisely. Which leads us to several moments throughout this spicy scene that we have to talk about. First, when Violet yells out, I'm going to see if I can say this without turning red. Oh, gods. And Xaden says, which one are you calling out for? Because it's just you and me in this room, Vi, and I don't share.
Okay.
Slowly turning purple over here. But I'm not done because it gets better. Violet says you, and Xaden says, I appreciate the elevation to deity, but my name will do.
Oh my gosh.
Are you kidding me?
I can't breathe.
I just want to know, like, Rebecca, how did you come up with that?
Oh my gosh.
It's so good.
Right. And when I first read this, I was blushing and just giggling to myself.
I can't get through one. Even I know it's coming. I'm literally like turning. It's hot in here. Take my sweater off.
Oh my gosh.
It's so good though.
It's so
like,
good.
Did that just like pop into her head in the middle of the night? Like, girl.
I kind of don't want to know the inspiration for it.
Fair. I am curious because that's so good. The whole little.
I will say, during this entire scene, I kept hearing the lyrics, "You did a number on me, but honestly, baby, who's counting?"
Oh, yeah.
From So It Goes by Taylor Swift, if you don't know, because Violet is teasingly counting down the minutes it takes for him to undress her armor, and Xaden counts other things.
No, that's the perfect song for this chapter.
Oh, yeah.
I could, playing like 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Honestly, the whole song in general just is very fitting for them.
It's going to be on repeat.
And then the mind reading moment. Violet thinks to herself, and it's, to be very clear, not italicized like it would be if she sent it through their bond. It's not, okay? Quote, "I'm not going to survive this. I'm going to die right here in this bed." And Xaden says to her out loud, also not italicized, but in quotation marks, "Then I'm going to die with you." And this is not an editing error, because Violet then thinks, "I'm so far gone, I didn't even realize I said the words out loud." She didn't.
No!
That is not an intention, first of all. That is 100% him reading her exact thoughts, which has been confirmed, right, by Rebecca Yarros in her London Q&A, where she said that, yes, Xaden can hear some of Violet's spicy thoughts about him. This is one of them.
Yeah. I was so confused when I first read it, but just chalked it up to her not understanding their bond capabilities or something.
Right.
But now that we know he's an intrinsic, it's so obvious.
It's so obvious. And both you and I went straight into Iron Flame, so like I didn't have a chance to reread. I feel like that would have been a big theory of mine had I not gone back to back. But then I'm actually really glad that I didn't have time to go back in it, because it was so flooring for me later. But yeah, no, this was glaringly obvious.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know how Rebecca got away with that and shocked us all. We're going to talk about this in our next couple episodes, which I guess we only have a couple till we're done. But we talk about how there's so many more hints at him being an intrinsic.
Right.
Toward the end of the book, it's like, girl, you were spelling it out for us.
Right. And how many times has this happened now where she literally says, "I didn't know I said that out loud"?
I think this is the first time.
Oh.
Yeah, I think this is the first time in Fourth Wing that she says.
I think it happened earlier in the book.
Oh, maybe. We have to go back, but I'm pretty certain that that's the... You might be thinking of Closer, where she'll say, like, it's as if he can read my thoughts.
Yeah.
But I think this is the first time that she says, "I didn't realize I said that out loud."
We'll have to check, because I think there was one before they were even, like, ever intimate or anything, where she doesn't realize she said something out loud.
It might be slipping my mind. Interesting. All right. Next notable moment, when Xaden says, "I fucking love your hair. If you ever want to bring me to my knees or win an argument, just let it down. I'll get the point." I love that this is like a sexy way that gives Violet some control. Some symbolic way to break through his walls, and there are many of them, right?
Right.
It's sort of like a truce bid when you're in an argument or a tense moment with your spouse and someone tries to make like a lighthearted joke, or I've seen some TikToks where someone will go put on like a goofy hat or something that like breaks the tension, but in a way that's like healthy, not like for the sake of not letting your partner express their feelings or anything like that.
Right. Everyone needs a good break from high tensions when it's appropriate. And there's just also something about how much he loves her hair that is so hot.
Yeah, I don't know how to put my finger on it, but I really love his obsession with her hair. Now, there's something about the part where Violet says, and this is just like how it's not necessarily her thoughts that are funny. It's how it's structured on the actual page that just makes me cackle every time. So it goes from her saying, yeah, let's go for 3. And then the very next line, which is the next paragraph down, it starts, we're going for 5. And it kills me every time reading that because that's funny.
It was very ambitious for them, but I love it for them.
Same, you go, girl. Oh my God, I'm like turning red over here. Okay. So in the midst of all of this, Violet compliments Xaden's relic. And Xaden explains that he used to think of it as a curse, but now sees it as a gift. And he doesn't get to explain further because Garrick starts banging on the door. But what he's referring to here is how their relic provides protection from Melgren's signet and how that has allowed them to supply daggers and support the revolution right under Melgren's nose.
It's a great point. And I have 2 thoughts on it. And one is that I love that Violet is now able to see his relic as a thing of beauty because everyone else sees it and they are full of hate and have a lot of judgment towards them. And the second thing is I love that Xaden no longer sees it as a curse and how he realizes that without it, he wouldn't have been able to help countless people.
Yeah, well, and this line was also foreshadowing how they got it, right? Because Liam's mom, Colonel Mari, imbued a rune to protect the children. So it was actually a gift, right? Though I could see how it would feel like a curse to now be a walking billboard for the rebellion, essentially.
Yeah, 100%.
They can't escape that, right?
Right.
Then, back to Garrick's perfectly timed interruption. He tells them that they're under attack. Violet is frantically getting dressed, and Xaden, Mr. So worried about Violet's reputation, throws his jacket over her shoulders. Let's be clear. I loved this moment because to hell with her reputation. Let's fucking go.
Neither one of these 2 were thinking about her reputation in this moment. Xaden was only thinking about Violet's health and didn't want her to get cold, which is so swoon-worthy.
Yeah, it is. I will say I was convinced on my first read that this attack that we were thinking was real was the climax at the end of the book, right? That the rest of the book would be this battle that happens tonight, but we find out that this was just a drill and the start of the last war game, which I actually appreciate because it left me completely unprepared for all of the twists coming up.
I'm gonna be honest, I don't think there was ever a point in this book that I was ever prepared for any of the twists and turns. But this was a clever way to throw us off balance, just like how Violet was thrown off balance.
Right. I definitely think that Rebecca did a great job of us as the readers feeling all of the emotions, like surprise, betrayal, confusion, grief. Like we feel it with her. And I'm really glad she's writing it from that perspective instead of giving us all of Xaden's secrets and then watching Violet squander with it.
Yeah.
Because then her thoughts and her feelings in the moment actually make a lot more sense to us.
Right.
So we can understand her perspective a little bit more.
Yeah, and we've talked about how Violet is an unreliable narrator because of how little she knows. But that is important for this kind of book because we're learning with her.
Right.
So
yeah, exactly.
If we knew everything to begin with and we're seeing somebody find out, I don't think it'd be interesting. And I think we would also get angry at how much was kept from her in that perspective too, because we already had all the information.
It was important we found out with her.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So Violet meets up with her squad at the mandatory formation, and we find out that Liam was also off gallivanting about as his cheeks turned pink when Violet asked if he had had a good night.
With who? I thought maybe Jasenia, but I also can't see Jasenia having casual sex with anyone just from what we've learned about her so far.
Maybe it wasn't casual. Oh no! I don't know. Maybe it was someone else that was casual.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just glad that he had a good last night.
Why would you say that?
Do you know you have 30 minutes?
Oh my gosh.
Oh my god. I feel like I'm going to hell for that. That's so bad. Okay. So this convo with Ree here is so fun to read, where she is interrogating Violet over whose flight jacket it is. They go back and forth with Ree narrowing all of the patches down to Xaden as the only possibility. Clearly.
Yeah, she totally knew without Violet telling her, but I love that Violet finally got to tell her new and better bestie, sorry, not sorry, Dane, all about her and Xaden. I also loved how Rhiannon responded by saying, damn, I wish someone made me shatter windows.
Yeah.
Same
That was such a good bestie line, too.
And then, as Dane approaches, she puts her arm around Violet to cover the patches on the jacket. This is such a girl's girl move. Rhiannon is the ultimate girl's girl.
She is. She doesn't just do it once. She does it twice.
Yeah.
And I love her for it very much. I do want to note that Liam overheard Ree comment on the jacket, and his head snapped in Violet's direction. At first, I was wondering why he was so surprised and kind of chalked it up to just him not knowing that Violet had started seeing Xaden again and that she had been with him right before this, right? Like that night. But I read ahead this week and remembered that later the same day, Liam essentially warns Violet about Xaden, saying he knows where his priorities are and saying that she was in over her head. So, as much as I think Liam was playfully supportive of a situationship before, I think he became very concerned for Violet when he realized it was serious enough that she was wearing Xaden's flight jacket out in front of the entire quadrant.
Sounds like our perfect little Liam. He cares a lot about Violet, and I think that he has the farsight, wink wink, to see how wearing Xaden's jacket could affect Violet and, honestly, Xaden.
Yeah, well, and what he's saying there is he knows how much Xaden hasn't told Violet yet, right? He knows about the scars on his back. He knows about the revolution. He knows they are bonded to bonded dragons and how messy this could get very quickly. All of those concerns are like extremely reasonable.
Yeah.
And it just shows that Liam is a real friend. I really wanted to emphasize how much more sense this Liam reaction made here with that context.
Right.
So then Colonel Atos relays the structure of the final event of War Games, all squads getting to choose the outpost they will reinforce, but wing leaders are assigned, though allowed to select who in their wing they'd like to take with them. We know now that Colonel Atos did this intentionally to send Xaden and the marked ones he was sure to take with him to their death. Because Colonel Atos found out from Dane that Xaden was running secret missions in Athben. We get so much foreshadowing here, as Violet describes Colonel Atos glancing over toward their squad, likely Dane, before turning to Xaden, and something about the way Colonel Atos' smile slips makes the hair rise on the back of Violet's neck.
She's known him all her life, and something that he did made her so creeped out that the hair stood on the back of her neck. Oh, it's a chills moment whenever you think about that.
Right.
On my first read, I thought this was weird because Basgith is so intense and needlessly cruel. So I thought that not allowing cadets to sleep and sending them out could have been a part of that. until you see how the groups were split. And that's how I knew it was something deeper. But I don't think I could have ever guessed how much deeper that this War Games would go.
No. And I'm kind of glad because I was thrown for a loop. And I like to be thrown for a loop. But this was a very cruel loop. Which, again, does go back to what you just said about it being like a cruel quadrant, right? Like they're literally a war college. But I guess like in other books, they don't have to be that dangerous. Rebecca just is like death everywhere you look, you know? So the squad has 30 minutes to change into their flight gear and meet out on the flight field where Violet finds Andarna and her new saddle-like vest that Xaden had made so that she could hook to Terran's saddle when they fly long distances. Great timing, first of all. Yeah. But also, as Violet puts it, just another reason to adore Xaden.
I'm
snaps.
Right there with you. Oh, adoring Xaden. And I love that Xaden did this for Violet because we all know how important Andarna is to her, which of course made it questionable why they would take Andarna with them outside of the wards. But there was a condition that she has to hide if they take enemy fire. And as Terran explained, no one tells dragons what they can and cannot do, even Feathertails.
Right.
Maybe especially Feathertails.
Especially sassy Feathertails. Well, and as we know, Andarna is always going to be where Violet needs her. And that is very much so the case for Athman. Wonder if she saw that coming. Wonder if she could see the future a little. Huh. What a thought.
What a thought.
What an interesting theory that we've never discussed before. Okay. So Xaden approaches as Second Squad is about to take flight and tells Violet that she, Liam, and Imogen are all going with him. Dane, of course, is pissed. And if we are right about him stealing her memory earlier in the night, this would mean that Dane is especially freshly pissed at Xaden because he knows that he has done something traitorous. Though he does not know, supposedly, if we take him for his word in Iron Flame, what his dad's plan is. I'm going to say that he didn't know, but still explains. To give him the slightest bit of credit here, if that's the case and he didn't know, it was absolutely unsafe of an idea to take Vi outside of the borders. Yeah. So he's got a point there. And Dane has even more reason than ever to not trust Xaden.
True.
Well, Athman included, I think, just as like the icing on the top, but Xaden did want to kill her. This does look awfully suspicious for Xaden. It does. So I can see why Dane makes the assumptions that he does here. Thinking a traitor would use this opportunity to take out the general's daughter, right? Fair. But I think that he should have stopped when Violet told him to.
Yeah.
Especially because he doesn't know that Xaden would protect Violet for more than just his own life like we do. I think it's important to note, because the comparisons are just there to be made, Dane didn't stop when Violet asked him to, but Xaden did.
And that's my main beef with Dane, among many other things that I have gone into detail at length in this whole entire podcast. But at no point in this book so far does he seem to understand or respect Violet's boundaries.
Right. It's so much less about the memory stealing for me. I personally actually do not fault him for that.
Yeah.
It's everything else around it. Finally, Dane realizes that Violet and Xaden are a thing when Xaden's gaze softens as he looks over at her when she asked him to stop arguing with Dane. I would be lying if I said that I didn't find satisfaction in this. But oddly enough, this read, this time, I felt the smallest bit of sympathy for Dane.
I did not feel any sympathy for Dane because I am Dane's #1 hater. But also, how is he surprised by any of
Yeah.
this? He had heard rumors about Xaden and Violet, and he chose to ignore them. So he was just truly living in his delusion. I also think I would have felt more sympathy for him if him and Violet did interact like better friends, or if he had been more supportive this entire time, or if Violet had actually led him on. But she didn't, so I struggle with feeling any sympathy for him.
I think he's probably just really confused.
Yeah.
Like, from his perspective, he was tasked with protecting Violet from Mira over, that's wanted to kill her and has very valid reason for wanting that.
Yeah.
He's been poisoned by the propaganda, right? Like, of all people, Mr. Codex. What I don't understand is him not seeing things like in Montserrat at the table with like how flirty they were. It's those moments. It's like, I know we don't see a lot off page, but come on, you had to have seen something. The only thing I can think is it had been a month and a half since really they had done much interacting in person. And so he was just like, it's been so long. Maybe Xaden was like fucking with me back then because he knows I have feelings for her. Like, I see it better from his perspective, this read, because I have convinced myself he didn't know Violet.
Yeah. Even so, she wasn't leading him on.
Right. No, and I never thought that was a part of it. I didn't ever think that she had led him on. Even, I think she was very clear when they squashed everything earlier in, but I think he still had hope, right? Like, it's the classic in love forever with your best friend kind of thing. Which does lead to my next point. This whole scene really makes it seem like Dane knew that his father was sending him to their deaths, right? So, especially the "I will miss you" line, which Xaden even brings up as like evidence, basically, to convince Violet that he must have stolen her memory, which he was right, but according to Dane later, not about this line. It looks really bad on Dane, but if we take his word in Iron Flame, and I do because Rebecca defends him tooth and nail, right? He had no idea about this and was saying, "I'll miss you," because Violet was choosing Xaden. He was trying to say goodbye to any chance of a romantic relationship, is what he tells us in Iron Flame. And I think that's got to be hard for anyone, even someone who I don't particularly like.
Yeah. We do have to take him at his word because what Rebecca has told us. It is really tough, though, because, like you said, him saying that he will miss her really feels
suspicious.
Yeah, it feels like he's sending her to her death. But even though we have to take Rebecca defending him and his words, I still feel like he knew something was going to happen, even though he says that he didn't know.
Well, he definitely seemed to fully believe that Xaden was going to get Violet killed outside of the wards.
Yeah.
So, maybe he still thought she was going to die, but not necessarily because of his father.
Yeah, makes sense.
I do want to say I loved Violet's choice to go with Xaden was rooted in trust. Like, this wasn't about rebelling against Dane or proving a point. It was about her following her instincts and aligning herself with the person who's been most honest with her consistently, even when it hurt.
Exactly. She's not following Xaden blindly.
Right.
She's doing it because...
Well, maybe a little, because she doesn't know, but not necessarily with the context and information she has, right?
Yeah. She's doing it because she understands him now to the extent that she can.
Right.
And her choice feels earned. And it's a huge step for their relationship and for her life.
Yeah, I think that's important because it also sets up for how betrayed she feels when she's like, I chose you. I chose this path. Later on in the day, when she's faced with this betrayal, like, she said she knew her life was, she emphasizes this in the last lines, where she acknowledges the symbolism of Xaden and Dane walking in opposite directions, knowing that she just made a choice that would be so much more impactful than, like, which squad to join for war games. She even thinks, my life is about to change forever. And she's right, because this is where the shit hits the fan. And later she's like, all of a sudden, realizing, she thinks for like a couple minutes, that she made the wrong choice. She still made the right one. But this whole like flipping, like this whole end of the book is so good.
Ugh, it is. But there was a moment from Xaden that gave me pause on this read. Violet said it seemed like he wanted to say more to her before they left for Aspen. So what do you think that was?
I was going to bring this up, so thank you for saying that. I think he was contemplating telling her about the venom, the possibility of them, because they're going outside the wards, right? Like, otherwise she never has to worry about it. He doesn't have to say it until he thinks that that's a possibility, but he's probably thinking like it's just a regular war game and that they weren't being set up to die. Though I'm really, really surprised that Xaden couldn't see this coming. Like, I'm very curious about that. Okay. But especially as Imogen explains in the coming chapters, Venom never come this far west. That's their perspective. That's the information that they know at the time. So he really didn't expect Violet to find out. Like, he thought he had more time. And I really think that he was going to say more in that moment, especially because he said right before, "Thank you for trusting me." And Violet says, "Always." So I think that he wanted to tell her more here because she'd prompted that, right? Like, imagine you say that to someone, you're hiding so many secrets, and they're like, "Always." And you're like, probably feeling guilty.
Yeah.
For how much. So I wonder if he wanted to give her a little more information and then just didn't want to risk Dane
touching her face.
Finding out. Yeah. Which we see the danger of him telling things to her, like literally in the next chapters. So it's not wrong. But yeah, that's how I read it.
It's had to have been so hard to be Xaden in that situation and just been like, yeah, always.
Yeah.
Except for maybe not always.
Well, and I wonder if that leads him to question, like, does she really love me if she doesn't really know me? And he said that to her earlier in the book, right?
That's a fair fear for him because, I mean, Iron Flame, where she is struggling because she doesn't know everything.
Which is such a pickle, right? Because he can't technically tell her because we see what happens. But then, like, from Violet's perspective, and of course us, the readers, we're just like, just fucking tell her. Like, god dang.
She needs to know.
So, all right. It's just like the closing thought for this episode. How many fucking times is Xaden going to say that Violet will be the death of him? The answer is too many to not question if he's actually going to die at the end of the series.
I noticed this too, and I honestly don't know how I would be able to survive that kind of ending.
No.
Especially if his death ended up being the result of anything to do with Violet at all. In relation at all.
I was feeling so confident that this series would not end like that. But between this and the gravity thing, and how gravity is the number one thing that'll kill writers, and like how that is so consistent, it's starting to make me question my sanity.
Yeah, and you have said
boycott series. If that I only ever want to read Happily Ever Afters. I was about to say that. Touch a fucking book if it's not a Happily Ever After, because I can't. I know I've said it before. Like, my mental health can't take it. Because why would you set yourself up for that kind of heartbreak? I might not have even picked up this book had I known about Liam.
All right, time to head on over to the Healer's Quadrant to get a temperature check on our characters' favorite moments and quotes. So, who was your hot this week?
Xaden and Rhi. So, for the reasons of Xaden really opening up emotionally, snap, snap, snaps, and then Rhi being a great friend and such a girl's girl as always.
Yeah, I had the exact same ones as you did.
That's interesting because we both have the same knot, and that is Colonel Atos.
Yeah, who else could have been a knot?
Dane is not a knot for me this week.
Not
I'm really surprised you just
been.
said that. I feel like I just caught you doing something wrong. You didn't put Dane. I'm so impressed.
I obviously don't like him, but he wasn't worse than his dad.
But for the memory stealing thing. And then, I don't blame him for that. So yeah, I think we've fleshed that one out pretty well. But yeah, I'm proud of you. Progress, Karen. Woo, woo. Okay.
Don't get used to it.
I know. Favorite moments. Mine this week is 2 of them. Xaden's reaction to Vi saying, "Now I take care of you." My heart just can't. And then Ree being the girl's girl. And covering the patches on Vi's jacket so Dane wouldn't see, not once, but twice. That's a friend. That is the friend we all need right there.
Such a good moment. It's one of my favorites too. And my other one was Violet finally admitting that she is in love with Xaden and them actually deciding to be together.
Yep. And this bliss moment, right? Like, this is like our only little stretch
30
here.
minutes.
Yeah, we got 30 minutes of that. Maybe not even that long. All right. Favorite quotes. I've got 2 of them. All right. Well, first of all, let me just go ahead and get the first one out of the way. I already said it to you guys, but you're going to hear it again. Which one are you calling out for? Because it's just you and me in this room, Vi, and I don't share. And then I appreciate the elevation to deity, but my name will do. Let's fucking go.
Oh my gosh.
So good. Okay. And then I don't deserve you, but I'm going to keep you all the same.
You picked such a spicy one and then such a sweet one.
He is a complex human being.
Yeah.
Shadow Daddy.
Shadow Daddy. Mine was also a Xaden quote, and it was, "Though I do think we're going to have to work on the fireworks show or people are always going to know what we are doing."
That makes me wonder if Dane heard those rumors. Because doesn't Violet respond to that quote and say something like, "I think that they already know, like, based on what happened last time"? Doesn't she say something like that? I bet that's where the rumors are. So how would he not? Anyways.
Delusion.
Delusion.
Did you hear about the girl who lives in delusion?
That's Dane. That's a song for Dane. Okay. Now let's stop by the Scribe Quadrant for our epigraph analysis, starting with chapter 32. As for the 107 innocents, the children of the executed officers, they now carry what shall be known as the rebellion relic, transferred by the dragon who carried out the king's justice. And to show the mercy of our great king, they will all be conscripted into the prestigious Riders' Quadrant at Bezgaeth, so they may prove their loyalty to our kingdom with their service or with their death. Addendum 4.2, the Treaty of Arisha. So we've spoken about how Xaden has made it sound like he initiated the deal idea, vouching for the marked ones to live and join the Riders' Quadrant as opposed to them being executed. This epigraph implies it was the king's final say, which makes sense. I still think it was Xaden's initial idea and that they worded it as such to favor the king, much like they worded it to sound like Melgren's dragon intentionally gave the marked ones their relic, when we know that is not true.
And of course they would try to make the king sound better, you know?
We're giving them the opportunity in the prestigious Riders' Quadrant as if literally they just didn't hope they all died and thought that a dragon would never bond with a marked one because of loyalty. Like, okay.
They couldn't have admitted that a child had this idea and they negotiated with
and also child. No, they would never do that, right? Like, it was only ever going to be worded like this. It's just like we know how well it's painting them out to be is just so infuriating with how cruel.
Right.
It was that or death. That's not a great deal.
No.
Like, not a win-win for them.
Death
it's
or
only
death,
a win-win
pretty
for
much.
Navarre. Yeah. Ugh. Anyways.
Chapter 33 says, the inability to control a powerful signet is just as dangerous to a rider and everyone in their vicinity as never manifesting one. Major Offendra's Guide to the Riders' Quadrant, Unauthorized Edition. This is pretty straightforward. The danger of never manifesting a signet is imploding. So saying that not being able to control a powerful signet, like Violet's, could lead to burnout really fast and or killing people around you, which is why Professor Carr took Violet far away to train.
Far away, yeah.
And since there were no Dane touchy moments, and I think it's safe to say there won't be any more of those, and no Scout prickle moments, that wraps up chapters 32 and 33. Thank you so much for listening, and don't forget to join us for our next episode where we will deep dive into chapters 34 and 35.
If you are looking for ways to support us so we can continue to make high-quality content, please leave us a review, check out our Patreon, give us a follow over on socials, and share to all of your Fourth Wing friends.
As always, we encourage you to email us all of your thoughts, theories, and suggestions. Drop them below if you are watching on YouTube or join us over on Discord.
Until next time, dearest fantasy readers, prepare yourselves to find out that Venin are in fact real, and Xaden has so many secrets as we continue our journey through the Empyrean series.
Major Offenda's Guide to the Writer's Quadrant, Unauthorized Edition.
Can you say Major Offendras again?
Yes. Major Offend... No, apparently not.